Good afternoon, guys. It's your bro Richie Rich here again. Today. Yep, I'm doing a little bit differently right now on YouTube. It's been a year since I've done it here. Since I've done it here, in my room, obviously. But yeah, it's been a long time. Today is an extended video of the previous Pep Boys video. So, without any further ado, let's continue on. So we're on history, so the early history, so the original Pep Boys were Emmanuel, Manny, Rosenfield, Maurice, Mo Strauss, Graham Jackson, and Mo Radovitz, four friends who in August 1921 chipped in $200 apiece to open a single auto parts store. So, are on the right track. So, they dubbed it. PASC. So PASC, Pep Auto Supply Company. So Pep Auto Supply Company. After noticing a shipment of Pep Value grinding compound on the shelves. They the name of the company emerged in pieces. The Pep Boys came from a policeman, from a cop, came from a cop who worked near the store. Every time the cop, the police officer stopped a car from every time the police officer stopped a car for driving without lights during nighttime hours, he would tell the drivers, "Go see the boys at Pep for a replacement oil wick," which was what was used as automotive headlights before the switch to electrical headlights. A few years later, while on a trip to Cal, while on a few years later, while a few years later, uh, while on a trip to, a few years later, while on a trip to California, Mo Strauss, so Maurice, so a few years later, while on a trip to California, Maurice, Mo Strauss, uh, he noticed that many successful many successful West Coast businesses used their owners' first names. One he particularly liked was a dress shop called Minnie Maud and Maples. As soon as Maurice returned to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the company's names officially changed to the Pep Boys, Manny, Mo, and Jack. So Manny, Mo, and Jack. Radovitz had cashed out the previous year and was no longer a partner. It's a shame, but times changed from there. Whoa, Jesus. To no longer a partner. Shortly after, the partners commissioned the. Shortly after, the partners commissioned the Manny, Mo, and Jack caricatures. I don't know how you pronounce that or say it. It's spelled CARICATURES that still serve as the company's logo. when Jackson left in 1927, when he left in 1927, his caricatures were placed with that of Moe's brother, Isidore Izzy Strauss. Weird. So Isidore Izzy Strauss. In 1929, Izzy left to form his own auto supply business in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, it sounds like it is a girl's name, but it is quite weird actually. But I'm not gonna judge this because it's not necessary. Anyways, so the heck was I? So he in 1929 he left to form his own auto supply business in Brooklyn, Strauss Stores, which later merged with Roth and Stlenger. I can't pronounce that. It sounds German. It's spelled SCH LENGER, Home and Auto, to form R&S Strauss, the predecessor of SDA, Strauss Discount Auto, later known as Strauss Auto, which closed its doors on June 4th, so early June 2012. Few days after the Big Bird GTR, R33 was crushed from the first Fast and Furious movie, which I talked about last year, I think. Around last year, I talked about the car. So later, the predecessor of SDA, Strauss Discount Auto, later known as Strauss Auto, which closed its doors on, which shut its doors on June 4th, 2012. So 2012. The company names whoa, Jesus, I'm going way too fast. I gotta get used to this one. I'm also doing YouTube downstairs, but not in my room. It's just, yeah, it takes a lot getting used to with this. Okay, where the hell is that? So in 1929, Izzy Strauss left to form his own auto supply business in Brooklyn, Strauss Stores, which later merged with Roth and Schlenger. I can't pronounce this. So Home, well, RSH as I call it, and Auto. So Roth and Schlenger, Home and Auto, to form R&S Strauss. So to form R&S Strauss, the predecessor of SDA, Strauss Discount Auto, later known as Strauss Auto, which closed its doors on June 4th, 2012. The company names reference to Jack remained unchanged, so no further changes. So remain the same. No further changes are made to the logo until 1990, the start of the very early 90s, when Manny's cigar was removed. So when Manny's cigar was removed, the Great Depression struck in 1929, the end of the 1920s, before the start of the very early 1930s. So the Great Depression struck in 1929, but Manny and Moe hadn't incurred business debts other than reasonable mortgages on store properties. Pep Boys was thereby illustrated from the severe downturn that destroyed so many other businesses. Although unemployment rates reached 40% in some areas. Both Manny and Moe didn't either lay off employees or cut salaries during the Depression. In 1933, Murray, Murray, or Murray Rosenfield, Manny's brother, opened the first West Coast Pep Boys store as part of a separate company named the Pep Boys, Manny, Mo, and Jack of California, and managed the Western operations. Within 3 years, Pep Boys of California had opened 11 stores. In 1945, Pep Boys went public. So Pep Boys went public, and Manny Rosenfield became the company's first corporate president, a position he held until, unfortunately, his death in 1959. May rest in peace. Shortly after Manny's death, Mo Strauss took over and served as president from 1960 to 1966. From the start to the mid 60s around there, and remained chairman of the board of directors until his passing in 1982. 4 years after he passed away, in 1986, Mitch Leibowitz became the first non-founding family member to be named company president. Stuart Rosenfield, Manny's grandson, Pep Boys' vice president of distribution, is the only founding family member currently in company management. Both the Strauss and Rosenfeld families continue to control approximately 1/5, so 20% of the company's stock until the early 90s. By 1969, the number of Pep Boys stores grew to nearly 1,250 service bays, and service managers were added to each store. In the 70s, all stores had in the 1970s, all stores had self-serviced merchandising and a computerized inventory systems in use. So it was in use. In the 80s came aggressive growth. Pep Boys moved to the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, and then enjoyed rapid expansion with the intro of the Supercenter. The store count grew to more than 7,009. So the store count grew to more than 7,009. It's over 7,000, and the company had more than 3,000 service bays. It generated more than $2 billion in annual sales, obviously. In the 90s, growth continued with the opening of stores in Puerto Rico. Next, 2000 and onwards. So, in January 2003, Mitch Leibowitz. In January 2003, Mitch Leibowitz announced his retirement. Larry Stevenson from Chapters, the Canadian book retailer. So from the Canadian book retailer Chapters, was named CEO, Chief Executive Officer, later that year, and served until pressured by the company's two largest shareholders to resign in July 2006. also like around over 6 months old at that time. So July 2006. In March 2007, Jeffrey C. Rachor, last name is spelled Rachor, so Rachor was named CEO. The following year, Pep Boys COO, Chief Operating Officer, Mike R. Odell became interim CEO with the resignation of Jeff Rachor. In September 2008, Mike was named CEO. In October 2009, a year later, Pep Boys acquired tire retailer, uh, tire retailer, Florida Tire. Tire retailer Florida Tire. The acquisition gave Pep Boys both 10 service and tire centers in the service and tire centers in the Orlando market in Florida. In March 2011, around 9 months before the new Born to Race movie was released, in March 2011, Pep Boys acquired 7 stores from Big O Tires, the tire retailer. The acquisition gave Pep Boys service and tire centers in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest of the state. In May 2011, Pep Boys acquired tire retailer Big Ten Tires. The acquisition gave Pep Boys an additional 84 service and tire centers in Alabama, Florida, and Georgia, including concentrations around both Atlanta, Georgia, and Orlando, Florida. In June 2011, 6 months before Born to Race was released, in June 2011, Pep Boys acquired 7 locations from automotive repair company My Mechanic. The acquisition gave Pep Boys additional locations in the metropolitan area of Houston, Texas. In January 2012, Pep Boys announced that they had agreed that Pep Boys announced that they had agreed to be acquired by the Gores, GORES group, an LA-based, so Los Angeles-based private equity investment company for $15 per share, or approximately $1 billion. But 4 months later, in May 2012, it was announced that the deal had fallen through. So it wasn't that long. In September 2013, I think before or after Paul Walker's 40th birthday, before he passed away, a few months later, may rest in peace. God rest his soul, Paul Walker. May rest in peace, though. In September 2013, Pep Boys acquired 18 discount tire centers in Southern California, enabling the company to boost 75% of LA area residents. So 75% of LA area residents now live within 3 miles of Pep Boys. In September 2014, a year after Paul Walker passed away. So in September 2014, the year Born to Race Fast Track was actually released, Mike Odell resigned as president and CEO, and John Sweetwood became John Sweetwood became John Sweetwood became became interim became so and John Sweetwood became interim CEO in June 2015. In June 2015, Scott P. Sider. So Scott P. Sider. Scott P. Sider. Scott P. Sider. Group. Scott P. Sider, Group President of Hertz Corporation's Rent-A-Car Americas. He became the CEO. He became the company's new CEO in October 2015, around 6 months after Furious 7 was released. I think. Yeah, 6 months. In October 2015, BRO Bridgestone Retail Operations, the Japanese tire company. So Bridgestone Retail Operations, a wholly owned subsidiary. So a wholly owned subsidiary of Bridgestone